Rescue Wop. Save the dinosaurs from an island that's about to explode. What could go wrong?
Hello and welcome to Fallen Kingdom, where we return to Jurassic World 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
In this episode, we're discussing minute 9 of Fallen Kingdom, but before we get to that, David, heading over to Jurassic-Pedia.com, we got a write-up here for a character returning in Fallen Kingdom and later in Dominion, someone we haven't really talked about since the Lost World Minute, and that's Dr. Ian Malcolm. Full write-up here by Tyrannosaur TJ on the Good Doctor, his early life, his study, chaos theory, all that sort of stuff, the incident at Jurassic Park, quite a bit there on his married life as well, because he does like to look for that future ex-Mrs. Malcolm, as he so colourfully put it there in Jurassic Park. And of course, he's back to bookend Fallen Kingdom, and we've just seen him in Dominion have a pretty good role there too, so it's good to see Jeff Goldblum back. I've loved seeing him in some other stuff that he's been doing post Fallen Kingdom. Thankfully, without the beard, we could probably touch on it here. I do prefer him, not so much the Cabin in the Woods Malcolm or something. It's good to see him back, and we're going to talk a lot about his involvement in Fallen Kingdom in minutes to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like to see in Fallen Kingdom how one important part about his characterization they kept is that he's a bit temperamental. He doesn't get along well with others. He does not play well with others. And so that's kind of one of the things that comes up in Dominion. And that's kind of one of his major character traits, because that's kind of why they brought in Grant in the first place, is because Hammond felt, oh my God, I'm sick of this guy's doom and gloom predictions. Give me somebody who might actually be on my side, you know? Yep.
And again, here in these minutes, we have him at Congress by himself, lecturing on letting these dinosaurs go extinct again. He's not out the front. He's not a member of the DPG. He's not anything like that. He's sort of doing this on his own, it would seem.
So it's kind of suffice to say that the dinosaurs are. Malcolm is not the dinosaurs because advocate.
And that's...
He wasn't a fan about them in the first place. 25 years later, he still doesn't seem to be.
And that was one of my biggest questions going into Dominion, was just how, after Jurassic Park, after The Lost World, how do you get these characters back into the adventure? I think they've done it pretty good with Malcolm. Not so much there for the dinosaurs, but for other reasons, and we'll get to that when we talk about Dominion itself. But yeah, it's good to see him back.
Yeah,
I think that we should allow our magnificent, glorious dinosaurs to be taken out by the volcano.
Silence, please.
As deeply sad as that would be.
Alright, Dave, ready to get into minute 9 of Fallen Kingdom?
Alright, yeah.
Alright, minute 9 of Fallen Kingdom opens with video footage of a jungle canopy and ends with Malcolm finalising one hell of a speech. Pretty much two big key scenes in this minute. First we get the end of the BBC segment, and then of course going to Congress with Dr. Ian Malcolm. But before we get to that, we've got the end of the BBC news segment. Do dinosaurs deserve the same protections given to other endangered species, or do they deserve to die? And that was one big thing going into this film, between this, the DPG and everything else. Essentially taken from Grant's dialogue, what Masrani did was create theme park monsters for Jurassic World, de-extinction, everything. Do these animals being on a private island, being pretty much patented to a company, deserve to live, deserve to be saved, and deserve sort of the endangered species title?
Well, and this conversation kind of goes back to Malcolm's whole condors versus dinosaurs thing from the first movie, where the other animals on the endangered species list are becoming endangered because of things like deforestation, habitat destruction, encroachment, stuff like that. And the dinosaurs were knocked out of a fluke, completely random disaster. They just happened to die at the right time in the right place. And with bringing them back, it's like you're taking this technology and you're using it for a family fun park. This is a private venture. You're not doing this for altruistic reasons. It's just you're doing it to stock a theme park where you charge $7 a soda.
Yep.
And we don't see the rest of the hearing here, but you kind of get the tone from Malcolm's tone that he's still continuing that thought that this isn't some kind of act of God. This isn't human encroachment. This is just the dinosaurs had their chance and they were selected for extinction. Once again, nobody could have predicted the volcano would come back alive. It's a fluke disaster, and Malcolm is advocating that we should let nature take its course.
I suppose you should also look at the history too. If they did bring a flock of condors back, they wouldn't then nest in New York City and start attacking the public. He's had two. Yeah, he's had two instances with the animals now. Just the thought of dinosaurs and humans coexisting, it's been disastrous every time it's happened. Again, film plots need the film plot, and they need to do what they do. But it's one of those things now where, and we're going to get to it at the end of the movie with what Maisie does by letting them go. But he surely, by this point, and we know by this point, pretty much the world knows everything that went on. Jurassic Park, Sauna, The Lost World, with the T-Rex in San Diego and that. There's not many examples where this is... And like, granted, Jurassic World was operational for 10 years without any incident, so it proved that it could happen. The biggest issue is, well, let's breed carnivores and hybrids and everything else, but having Malcolm here with his history of these animals and him saying it's time for these animals to die again is pretty powerful and should be taken with some heavy consideration by those at the hearing. I suppose it also given the animals a patent, it's not like a herd of cows out on a ranch and there's a forest fire coming through or a grass fire coming through and you've got to save them or something like that. It's sort of real. How can I say real animals? Of course, the dinosaurs are real as well, but
they are. But their place in the ecosystem has yet to be determined, and that's the whole thing. Is that, like, industrialized farming? We've created that exists separate from nature. These dinosaurs exist separate from nature. They're not integrated in. We don't just let the cows go roam off into the woods. We keep them penned up in one, like, multi-mile spot.
Well, and out of necessity, because again, you can't have cows roaming through downtown Chicago.
Though we did used to.
Yeah. Yep.
Way back when, there's still buildings out there that have like cattle doors and elevators where you would then take them down to the stock floor.
Yep. Yeah. No, my local town that you still got the large area in the centre of town where the stockyards used to be, just because it was central to the railway station, the railway line.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now railway lines moved. Of course, they got moved ages ago because of smell and everything else, and people suddenly didn't want cows in the middle of town anymore. But it is, yeah. Anyway, we're spending too much time on it. I think we're gonna touch briefly back on this when we learn what the outcome of the hearing is and why Congress and the US don't want to interfere with what's going on in Sauna. So there's more discussion there. Personally, and hindsight's the key here. If they knew what was going to happen for the end of this film into Dominion, I'm sure they wouldn't not just be saying, no, we're not going to save these animals. They'd be probably going there and trying to speed up the eruption just to make sure they were wiped out. But yeah, we'll return to that later. Briefly, before we do leave the news bulletin behind too, we get the one little final bit of info from the ticker tape down the bottom saying former InGen scientist Dr. Henry Wu, and we don't get to see what the rest of that is, but we do know Wu was brought up and charged or brought up on crimes for bioethical misconduct, losing his, well, there's no InGen anyway, so he's not the head of InGen genetics anymore. He's been stripped of his I won't say medical degrees, his medical
doctorate,
stripped of all that, and not allowed to legally play Dr. Frankenstein anymore. Although, as we see in this film and the next, he's still at it. You can't keep a good scientist down, they say. But there's a little bit more info to that in the novelisation that we'll get to at the end. And that's when we cut to the Congress hearing room, and we again got Jeff Goldblum back, reprising his role as Dr. Ian Malcolm. I think we should allow these magnificent, glorious dinosaurs to be taken out by the volcano. Just straight into it, he wants them gone. This gets some murmuring from the crowd, and Ian addresses it by saying, as deeply sad as that would be. trying to play both sides, but
well, I think he's trying to be brutally honest, but not too brutal about it, you know.
But that's the character too. He's brutally honest at the lunchroom scene, and all through Lost World, even though there's a bit more snark and a bit more quippy to him. Mm-hmm. And then again, going into Dominion, the arrogance is still there. He says we drastically altered the course of natural history, and this is a correction, i.e. the eruption of the volcano. One of the congresspersons addresses him. Are you saying that the Almighty is taking matters into his own hands? And we know how religious Malcolm is, because he says, "Senator, with all due respect, God's not part of not part of the equation." No. What I mean is, in the last century, we amassed landmark technological power, and we're constantly proving ourselves incapable of handling that power. 80 years ago, who could have predicted nuclear proliferation? And there it was. And now we have genetic power so how long will it take, or is it going to take, to spread around the world, and what's going to be done with it? And it's sort of interesting. I do like in Dominion how they sort of moved away from just, yes, we got cloned dinosaurs, but the genetic power's going into other things as well. And of course, Wu's there to help out. But
well, I think what he's discussing here would be like the possibility of engineered bioweaponry, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, taking anthrax and mutating it into something even unimaginably worse. Mm.
Well, even he brings up the whole nuclear thing here. Yes, back in the 80s, the nuclear scares and all the sort of things that happened since the invention of the A-bomb, but even what we've had to witness during the blip over the last 2 years of COVID, just how...
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's I won't put my tinfoil hat on, but whether or not you believe that was intentionally an intentional China thing, or if it was just a mistake and it got out, whatever the case may be, just how much of a global impact that possible mistake has made on the world. And if it wasn't engineered, well, you can imagine if someone did engineer something like it or worse, and how the dinosaurs being alive. Not quite sure how those two are connected, but I think they need to have a look at some of the pharmaceutical companies and see what they're up to.
There's of course another thing, and we hear Mills talking to the auctioneer or later in the film, and he's listing off possible uses, and one of them, of course, being pharmaceuticals.
Mm. Well, and it goes back to the original Jurassic Park novel. Lost World novel with Bison and Dodgson wanting, possibly being able to create their own dinosaurs that aren't real animals, and being able to get past animal testing laws and all that sort of stuff, which is sort of prevalent as well. So, but then again, back then they thought they could make the dinosaurs and people wouldn't think they're real animals. And here they are having the DPG and that protesting to save the animals, and even what we get in Dominion with all the black market stuff as well, and what Claire's doing. So it's The world's changed a little bit since 93 or 95. But that's the end of the minute. Anything else on his little speech there? I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
Heading over to novel comparisons, one inclusion in the novel here is footage of a man leaving a government building ducking reporters' questions. He was covering his face with his hands, and we get former Jurassic World scientist Dr. Henry Wu stripped of all credentials after being found guilty of bioethical misconduct, refused to comment. And interesting, she still calls him Dr. Henry Wu, even though he's no longer a doctor. But, that's a little bit of an added scene there that we don't get in the film. So we actually see Henry leaving the government building after being stripped of his credentials. So, which will probably lead to later while he's locked up in a bunker or underneath Lockwood Mansion, not sticking his head up. But Dave, that's minute 9. Anything else you want to discuss before we get out of here for today?
No, I think we're good.
All right, lovely.